All right. So if you ever find yourself where there's just too much going on in your head, as I think Tony Robbins once said, if you stay in your head, you're dead. So you got to get it out and you got to put it somewhere. So to talk about some ways you can have more of a systems minded way of getting things out of your head and out there so you can execute and scale it and even delegate it to others. I'm super excited to have Dillon Carter here from goaura.com. So Dillon, thanks for coming on and talking all this stuff here with us.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. Systems is a very interesting thing. You have a few. I'm going to start throwing you resources from like minute one here. You
Uh-huh.
know, I first read E-Myth Revisited, like most of us do, and that's like a
Mm,
primer on this concept of who are you, where are you in this kind of hierarchy of needs when you're wearing multiple hats, and it kind of
mhm,
introduces you to this idea of standardization and processes and systems and SOPs and blah blah
mhm.
blah. But the book that really changed me was Work the System by Sam Carpenter. He's got it for free if you go to workthesystem.com. I mean, you can download the Kindle version for free. It's a great read, and it's very much a how-to guide on how do you go from pure chaos, you have to do everything because you're the special person, to everybody else can do everything and you're not that special, which by the way is a good thing. It's a nice ego check as a business owner.
Right.
But how do you make things transferable, this knowledge, right? um, so when we started the software company, it was the first time me working with other people, and I'm used to keeping everything in my head, which is
Mm,
okay when you're running a small business, but guess what, when you want to grow, that does not scale. And
mhm,
I started to pay attention to people when they were hiring and what are the pain points that they were experiencing. They would hire somebody and day one, they're like, hey, just go do that thing. How do I do it? Oh, let me sit down and teach you. And then like it took up too much of my time to train. I'm like, well, what did you do before you hired the person? Did you make the process better? Maybe, maybe not. Did you document how you make decisions so that you can give that to them? Maybe, maybe not. If you're not doing these things, hiring becomes almost impossible, in my opinion. So what great example. Um, when we started, I took on the customer support role. As one of the founders, we were told, hey, you should outsource that to a VA and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, we're gonna do it because we're gonna get it right. So during that process, I made the process better. I could have just said, no, just hire somebody and let them figure it out. Instead, I took that up upon myself and I said, how do I make customer support first class? How do I make it amazing? And so I iterated that process. And what was great is now that it was better, whenever I gave that to somebody else, a new hire, that process is not the first iteration. It's the 1,000th. I can't say
mhm,
that iteration of it, right? And it's just so much better that the person who's doing that task is actually enjoying it. So
mhm,
at any point in time, you have inputs, process, output.
mm,
What we do as business owners is knowledge work. If you think
mhm.
about it, we're not doing manual labor here. What we are
Right.
doing is we are moving information from here to here and ideally making it better to increase the value of it to wherever there is.
Mhm,
That's really it. So you have to think through how am I doing everything? How am I making decisions, right? If this takes me 12 steps, how do I get it down to 6 steps?
mm,
This is how you start to have leverage on tasks. This is how you go from it would take 3 people to get all these things done to just me, and I can get it done. And oh, by the way, I can hand it off to somebody else and just not do it, period. So super important, right? So once I realized we were getting close to needing to hire somebody, I started to document even more. I mean, everything. So that once we did hire, I go, here's like a brief overview of what we do. But if you have any questions, just go here. And here is our external brain. So we use Notion for this. You can use Google Docs, your
mhm,
own built-in wiki. It doesn't matter, and I'll show you. The idea here is let's take all the knowledge that exists in the company and each person's mind and make it external and searchable, right? So how do we make decisions? How do we do certain tasks? Like who does certain tasks? So I'll share this over with you. So this is just the customer success kind of page, right?
mhm,
So we have one for engineering, for ops, for finance. And at the end of the day, we have it set up to where if I just have a question, I can search for that question, like this one right here, and get an exact answer. So if somebody joins the team tomorrow and they have this question, they're not coming to me. They're coming here, doing Command P and searching and getting their own answer. So we have our own like mini Google search, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. And what's great is we make this even better. So if there's a saved response, and a saved response is just like text expansion, which we can definitely talk about later, but
Mm-hmm.
it's how do I not have to retype the same paragraph every single time? That a saved response is just a template, right? So if we have a template that answers this question for a user, for a customer, we let the person who's reviewing this know, hey, by the way, you don't have to type out this answer yourself. We already did that for you. So not only are we making the task better for ourselves, we're making it better for our team. And the team is making it better for the next person in line, so to speak. And basically, the way you want to approach this is every single person on the team should be making their lives better every single day.
Mm-hmm.
How you do that's very important. That's through systems mindset. You're thinking through each task is a mini process, right? How do I take it again from 12 to 6 steps? And then how do I make it so that I don't have to get asked the same question over and over? So if I get asked a question twice, it gets put here with an answer.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm not the go-to resource for knowledge. Notion is. So let's say you wanted to jump into a specific process, okay, gods and processes, and we have this broken down. So if I say, hey, go ahead and add that as a bug in Jira, I don't need to then have a 30-minute conversation for you to know how to do that. It's already here, what to include, how it should look like. All this is well documented, exactly what to do from start to finish. And what's great is over time, your team gets good at building these for you. So although you're kind of triggering and starting this process, eventually you write a guide on how to write guides, which is very meta.
Ah,
And then you go,
okay. Yep.
hey, you know how to make that process better. You did a great job. Can you make a document for that so everybody understands how to do it in case you were not here one day? Maybe I need to do it. I don't want to be like, hey, man, I know you're on vacation, but can you help me out here?
Right.
I want you to say, no, check Notion. You know how to do it, right? So no matter what it is, all this stuff is written down in a nice, succinct way. We even have some more meta stuff, right? So we call them protocols. So how do we get certain things done? So how do we handle intercom, which is our customer support tool, which is like what we're in day to day. How do we tag, chargeback handling, like high level, right? So treat intercom like your email, achieve inbox zero.
Mm-hmm.
Super important, right? So we're basically saying like, here are the high level things through which you should be operating. This is not just a SOP of here's how to respond to a ticket. This is at a macro level. Here's how we handle things. Once you respond to a ticket, you actually snooze it so it's not in the view because now you can't take action on it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we're even thinking through those things, right? Because you can visually be overwhelmed if you have 30 tickets open. But if you only have one you can actually respond to right now, why do you need to see the other 29? So we're even thinking about it from that way, right? Snooze is your friend. Saved response. Replies or responses will save you time. So we're even enabling our people to use many automation tools to make their lives better.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the day, what does this all mean? It means that once you know the trajectory through which you're trying to get, right? If you know the KPIs as an example, key performance indicators. It's been a long day. You know the metrics you want to hit. Like for us, it's a average first response time of 10 minutes during business hours. It's one thing to say, I don't know how we're going to do it. And it's another to say, well, let's just solve that problem and then write SOPs so that we can hand them to anybody and they can hit that in day one. What's great is once we did hire somebody to take on like daily support for me, he was by himself in a week, like fully, like handling all of, like I was not even logged into support.
Mm-hmm.
And I set very low metrics for him just because it's like he's gonna have to ramp up, and he crushed it. Literally no time hitting all the metrics. I was like, oh my gosh. And that's due to this knowledge base. And we even have a certain nice little kind of subtlety. So if they couldn't find an answer, literally couldn't find an answer, right? Here's what you do. You come here, you put it, you put where you think it should go. And then that lets me know I need to go write this answer. So we don't even need to have a conversation. That's the cool part. So I even made my task easier because he'd be like, hey, like I couldn't find this. What do you think the answer is? Now I go add that to Notion. This is a tripwire for me to come back and be like, oh yeah, I do need to write that, add that to my task list, right? So everything is procedural based. What's fun is that although it may seem like it's less creative and there's a ton of rules and blah blah blah, that's actually not the case. What's interesting is because your mind is so freed from having to make these decisions and think through all this stuff every single time it happens, you're actually free mentally to solve more complex problems. The fact that I don't have to retype the exact same answer to the same question I've been asked for the past 2 years
Mhm.
is phenomenal. And guess what? The user, the customer doesn't have to wait for me to type that whole thing out, especially if I'm having a rough day and I give you half the answer by accident. Now I
Mhm.
go hashtag the answer, and it's beautifully written and it's
Mm.
very positive, and you have no idea that I'm having a terrible day. That's important and it's scalable. So whenever you're thinking about your business, you should always view it as a collection of systems and understand which system needs your maximal attention. We talked about growth levers and bottlenecks at one point. Once you understand what your biggest bottleneck is, you understand how you can zoom into that system, make tweaks, make it better, fix it, and then move on to the next thing. Your goal, your role as the business owner, especially as you're building a team, is to manage these processes, make them better, make them more scalable. It's not just hire a VA and throw them on it. No, make it better first. Because
Mm.
if a computer can do it, a human shouldn't be doing it. I don't care if you pay a VA $1 an hour. If a computer can do it for $50 a month, that is still cheaper and more
Right, right,
consistent.
right.
So at a high level, that's kind of how like you want to view things. It's very procedural based. It's very standardization kind of heavy, right? It's like we always respond with this answer, but it's consistent. And once you get to that point, the tasks that typically take you an hour a day now take you 5 minutes a day. That's pretty incredible. So when you talk about scaling a business, even as a very small team like we are, this is how we do that.
Yeah, and that makes sense because if you can get it out of your head and that
Yeah,
way there's less people coming back and forth to you, or for a solopreneur, if you're starting to invest the time of
yeah,
documenting things now, that when you grow into having, a virtual assistant or a team,
yeah.
that you don't have to spend as much time training them because you'll have already spent some of the time just documenting what you did.
Exactly. And you get to a point where you realize every time you see the same kind of thing recurring and you're having to resolve it again and again, you're like,
Mhm.
well, I could solve it one time really well and then just apply that solution every time it comes up, or I can waste precious mental energy resolving it every single time. Why? It doesn't make sense. So this stuff is not reserved for while you're building a team or having built a team. This starts with you by yourself.
Mhm.
Because again, if I can take you from making 50 decisions a day to 20, your life is literally better. And that mental capacity now gets to be deployed to solving the more complex problems, which is how do I grow the business? How do I double my size this next year? That's what you need. But when you're bogged down by repeatedly like solving the exact same problems, you're not going to have the mental capacity to actually work on the things that really move the needle.
Awesome. Well, this is great. So if somebody wanted to follow
Mhm.
you somewhere and hear more of your tips, where would they go?
Yeah, so you can go to dilloncarter.com. Link is in the description below. And of course, keep watching these videos up here.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Dylan.
Thanks.